This is John I, and I'm making a recording of how I worked step 4 incorrectly. Step 4, made a searching and fearless inventory of ourselves. So I immediately spotted the word moral. And that's the first time I worked the steps. And I knew that whatever this 12-step business was about was going to include punishment, me being judged, me being told I'm immoral, and lots of talk about how I need to change myself completely. I needed to be something that I wasn't. There was the word. You are not moral. And I wasn't, and I dreaded that. And I did not want to work step 4 because of that dread. Well, I was studying the steps and I explored how they were originally worked. And it turns out that back then, a moral inventory was not an inventory of morals. It wasn't an inventory of things I should be doing and I'm not doing. A moral inventory is a truthful inventory. That's what's moral about it, is I'm simply telling the truth. I'm admitting the facts. It's like when you go into court and you take an oath that says what I'm about to say is true. You're not promising to be superhuman. You're just saying what I will now say is true. And that was the spirit of step 4. That's the moral part of the inventory. Tell the truth. I was off the hook for having to think about the worst thing I'd ever done. Believe me, there's plenty I regretted. One of the things that they teach lawyers all through law school is you should never answer a question that the lawyer who's interrogating you did not ask. So, for example, if you're on the stand and an attorney says, "Do you know what today is?" You might be inclined to say, "Well, yes, today is Tuesday, the 17th of April," or whatever. They would correct you and say, "I didn't ask you to tell me the date. I asked you if you knew the date." And the moral answer to that question is, yes, I know what today is. Period. So it's important to not over answer the step 4 inventory. And again, I've been doing it this way for decades, and it has kept me on the right side of recovery. So I'm passing that experience on to you. So in the inventory, I only answer what is asked. Now, the fact that it's called an inventory is significant. Some people who work in retail or some place, a warehouse, know inventory is a list of all the things you're storing, the things that are available for sale or shipping or whatever. In the 1930s, that was not the primary definition of inventory. The primary definition of inventory was a written list of the belongings of a deceased person. The person has died, and their lawyer will come over to their home, their property, with an inventory sheet. And they will begin to write down one item at a time, everything the deceased person owned. Every animal on the farm, every building on the property, every room in the house, every object in every room. Beds, sofa, bureaus, kitchen appliances, tools, guns, coins, jewelry. It is an exhaustive documentation of the fact of what property the deceased person owned before they died. And so for this to show up, is not a coincidence, or in the 12 steps, because Bill Wilson was trained as an attorney. He took law school for 2 years. And he knew perfectly well what an inventory was in the legal sense in the 1930s. So, with the inventory was preceded by 3 important steps. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol or our compulsion. We came to believe a power higher than human power could restore us to sanity. And we made a decision to turn our will and lives over to the care of God as we understood God. So, we're describing a person who is powerless, who cannot manage, whose thoughts don't work right, their decisions don't work right, their emotions don't work right. They may not be dead, but there's nothing left of their life as they once had it and still wish they could live it. It's gone. So I just want to stress the inventory is a written list taking stock of a life that has been lived up to this point. And it's a truthful one. That's what the word moral means. Well, why would we do all this? Because it's a spiritual program. By the time you come into a 12-step program, things are probably not going really well for you spiritually. They weren't for me. I should speak for myself. I was on my last legs. So I made a moral inventory of myself. We're going to do something as truthful as we can. Just means we're going to be truthful. That's all moral means. We're going to inventory something, but we're going to do it in the way that a 1930s attorney would inventory the possessions of a deceased person. Item by item. Very matter of fact. Very calmly. Not hysterically. The things that are left behind after that point. And this, again, going back to the written step, what are we making an inventory of ourselves? The big book, it explains what it means by an inventory of ourselves. It includes figuring out or documenting the life of a powerless person who can't manage, who needs help of a higher power. And there are some parts to step 4 that I'll get into in the next recording.